Hey everyone and welcome back. Now in the earlier video we were discussing about the basics of namespaces and the advantages that it provides. So in today's video we'll look into it practically into more detail on some of the important considerations that you will have to ensure while you are implementing namespace in production. So going back to our Consul GUI, let's go ahead and go to manage namespaces, and there are again multiple ways in which you can go ahead and create a namespace. First is through the GUI itself. So let me show you. So you can say demo namespace. You can also add a description. Let's say this is a demo namespace here. I'll go ahead and I'll do a save. So you should see the demo namespace and its associated description. If you want to delete it, you can also go ahead and delete it easily from the GUI here. Now also note that you can also create the namespace very easily with the help of CLI as well, and that is our focus for today's video along with few other things. So going to our notes section here we are creating two HCL files called as alice-team.hcl and bob-team.hcl, and you are adding a contents called as name is equal to the name of namespace. In this case it is alice-team. So once you have this HCL file created, all you have to do a console namespace write followed by the name of the HCL file, which is alice-team.hcl, and this will go ahead and create a namespace. So let's go ahead and try the CLI way here. So within the console.d, let's go ahead and create a new file. Let's call it as alice-team.hcl. I'll say name is equal to alice-team. Now you can go ahead and do a console namespace write followed by the name of the HCL file. So in the output you should see something similar to this. So within the GUI you see the alice-team namespace is created. In a similar way, let's also create a file called as bob-team.hcl. We'll use the same convention. The name of the namespace would be bob-team. Let's go console namespace write followed by bob-team.hcl. And as expected, we have namespaces created across both of them. Now let's go to key value here. So as of now, this is a default namespace. So if you want to create a key value across a specific namespace, let's call it as alice-team. You see, as soon as you clicked here, the path within the URL changed. So let's call it as alice-kv, and within the value, I'll just put it as Alice here. That's great. So now let's switch to bob-team. Again, you see the URL changed and the key associated with the Alice namespace is no longer visible here. So that was associated with key value. Now, as we know that each team can also have their own sets of application and services. So here you can go ahead and create a service definition specifically for the Bob team, for the Alice team. Now the way in which you can go ahead and create a service for a specific namespace, the overall definition remains to be the same. The only additional thing that is required here is the namespace stanza of bob-team and the namespace stanza of alice-team. So let's go ahead and try it out. So let's copy this up. So let's say web-bob.hcl. I'll paste the contents here. Let's also create a file of web-alice.hcl and I'll paste the contents where the namespace is Alice team. Once done, you can do a console reload. Now immediately you see you basically got an error related to a file of alice-team.hcl. So if you do a ls over here, we had basically created the namespace related configuration of alice-team and bob-team, and we added it as part of the console.d, and this is the reason why you're getting an error. So ideally all of these files you should move it out of the console.d directory. So let's go ahead, and since our namespace is already created, I'll go ahead and remove the alice-team and bob-team.hcl file. So if you're doing it, you should start it from a different directory like root directory or any other directory apart from the console.d. So now let's go ahead and do a console reload. So our configuration reload has triggered. So now let's go to services. So here you should see a service associated with the name of web service, which is running on port 8080 in Bob team namespace. And for the Alice team, you have the same service name but with a different port, which is 9080 here. Now also note here is that If you do not specify this namespace here, for this example, let's copy this up. So let's create a file called as web-default.hcl. Let's paste the contents. I'll do a console reload. So now if I go to the default namespace, we have a web service which is running on 1080. So here, if you're not explicitly specifying a namespace, then by default, this service will be created in the default namespace here. Now, few more important things that you need to remember specifically for the DNS interface. So earlier for service discovery, we used to do a service name.service.consul. You can even specify a data center. However, if you're making use of namespace, you'll also have to specify the namespace, primarily because in multiple namespace, there are services with the same name. So let's take an example. So if I do a dig on 8600, let's call it as web-service.service.consul, and we'll use the SRV record. So in the output, we are seeing 1080. So if you look into the default namespace definition, this is 1080. Now, if you want to fetch the details associated with the Alice team namespace, now if you want to specify the namespace here, you can specify Alice-team. Now do note that at this stage, you will not really get an output. So it is always ideal to always specify a data center here. So the default DC is dc1.consul. So as soon as I press enter, you should see the port of 9080 for Alice team. And if you also add a Bob team, you should see the port of 8080. That's great. So I hope at a high level overview you understood the basics about the implementation of namespaces and some of the important considerations that you have to take while creating a resource in a namespace.